gentlemen, my name is Bhavna Bhatia, and right now we're towards the cloud security panel discussion. We're looking at talking about securing the cloud threats, attacks, and mitigation. What is the big picture takeaway for enterprises investing in cloud? What is the changing in cloud security services, products, and cloud native capabilities to enable more effective intrusion detection and incident response? How can we overcome and improve also the security and visibility and security in hybrid multi-cloud environment? As the cloud and cloud native landscape evolves, what are the security implications and what security approaches should organizations take? Also, we're looking at talking about how can we leverage AI and analytics while ensuring data privacy, compliance, and security, and what are some of the security techniques, best practices from both software and hardware aspects for protecting data in the cloud. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for this, we're elated to be joined by our panelists. First up, Yash, who's the Chief Information Security Officer, Indian Oil Corporation Limited. Well, Yash has over 2 decades of experience in steering IT functions successfully at IOC in various capacities and is now responsible for the cybersecurity operations, infrastructure, and governance. With this, I welcome him on the stage and screen. Thank you, Yash, for joining us.
Thank you, Bhavna.
Joining now is Uttam Majumdar, the co-founder, Locus and Simon. Uttam is proud to be a founder of a business that has a role to enable India's moon mission, a business securing data of national importance and one that has transformed the decision support system. Thank you so much, Uttam, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
Also joining us is Manoj Sarangi, the Senior Vice President and CISO, National Securities Depository Limited, which is the NSDL. Well, Manoj is responsible for establishing information security strategy and direction, and he leads the cybersecurity incident management, security standards and certifications at the NSDL group. Thank you so much, Manoj, for joining us today.
Thank you, Bhavna. Thank you for having me here.
Also joining now on the screen is Sachin, the Vice President and Head Cloud WebWorks India Private Limited. Well, Sachin is respected personality in the cloud, blockchain and IoT community, both in India and globally. At WebWorks, he heads the business strategies related to cloud and CDN, along with managing P&L, vendor alliances, and CXO engagements. Thank you so much, Sachin, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
And ladies and gentlemen, with this, it is now my privilege to introduce to you the moderator for this session. We have Raj Gopal Nayak, Chief Technology Officer, Metro Brands Limited. Well, a seasoned and accomplished IT professional with over 20 years of diverse experience in strategic planning, business analysis, business solutions, project management, IT governance, systems development, vendor management, customer relationship management, and team management across consumer goods, paint, and manufacturing industries. Thank you so much, Raj, for joining us today.
Hi, thanks, Bhavna, and a warm welcome to the panel.
Likewise. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this, the panel is on your screen. It is now time to pass on the live baton to our moderator, Raj Gopal, to take it forth. Meanwhile, if you do have any questions, please type it up in the Q&A tab. We'll take it up at the end of the session if time allows. With this, over to you, Mr. Nayak, to take it forth with your panel.
Thanks, Bhavana. Very good evening to all my audience and also to members of the panel. So today we are here to discuss, the topic of securing the cloud, threats, attacks, and mitigation. Let me start off by asking the first question to Manoj. Manoj, what are the big picture takeaways for enterprises investing in cloud tools?
Thank you, Raj. I think that's a very fundamental question of migrating onto the cloud. So the cloud, when any organization starts a cloud journey, it has certain business and other benefits that it has in mind. And strategically, we have come a long way from virtualization to hyper-convergent infrastructure, then to cloud. The major takeaway from a cloud infrastructure is to optimize and reduce costs and increase agility so that we can be flexible to scale up and down as required, improve collaboration amongst the workforce partners and the whole ecosystem, and the complexity of managing the infrastructure gets also reduced. From a security perspective, there are several benefits. One of the major benefits that we get is backup, getting reliable backup, and which can potentially prevent against malware or ransomware attacks, or certain adverse cyber events, because inherently cloud can provide immutable backups and multi-locational backups. So those are some of the major advantages. Apart from that, recovery becomes much easier when you are on cloud. So these are some of the key benefits, key takeaways for any organization that gets to invest in a cloud infrastructure. Thank you.
Thanks, Manoj. And so true for a company like NSDL, right? And for all of us. Now, over to you, Yask, with the same question. What are the big picture takeaways for enterprises investing in cloud today?
Right, Rajgopal. So a small disclaimer first, I'm here in my personal capacity, so the views are my personal and not necessarily my company would subscribe to these, right? I think what Manoj pointed out is, I would just extend what he's saying. Couple of key, first, the cloud, the relevance of cloud is more than the requirement of cloud nowadays. So I think now we have come a time when, we have easily transitioned into a phase when cloud was not just a point of discussion in the IT strategy, it is now a part of that. Everybody, it is in the mainstream of any IT strategy. The second is that the focus and discussions are traditionally, or now happening on how to optimally use it. As Manoj pointed out, a couple of advantages, the backups and all these are very standard ones. Yes, absolutely, these are important, and that is the objective. I think most of the companies that they start their cloud journey. What is important to understand, although it is very difficult to really identify the benefits, but a couple of key takeaways. I would say one is if you start looking at the ROIs. Now, ROI is not to be looked at purely from a financial point of view. The investment, especially when we are talking about a CI/CD environment, when the agility and speed is the need of the hour, and the expansion is happening. In the last 18 odd months, we have seen the kind of requirements that have come up. So I think the cloud one offers this kind of a advantage that no other infra is going to offer to you or offer to any enterprise. It does give you a lot of flexibility. The standard things that they were there. Then another key takeaway or aspect or the thing that the cloud is doing is actually rewiring the whole processes of the organization. It is not just about technology. I mean, it is more to do with the processes. Cloud really helps in, I'm not saying that cloud helps, it's the organization which has to decide, and just taking a step back, one important aspect is that cloud is just a means, it is not the end. Organizations and anybody who is wanting to get onto the cloud journey needs to understand that this is not what the objective should be. You have to clearly define the objective, and then obviously cloud is the one which is going to help achieve that objective. So as I was saying, process rewiring is one key area. A lot of expertise is being developed and offered by the cloud service providers. So that is another one advantage, especially for the SMBs and the medium MSMEs. Right, so these are some of the things. I mean, large organizations obviously are gaining by some of the things that have been mentioned by Manoj also. But yes, I think these are the key takeaways.
Thanks, Yash. And it's quite true. I mean, the discussion on cloud first is no longer an option, but an imperative. With respect to ROI, of course, one has various cloud partners that one can work with, and also a new set of skills required, right, to ensure that you get the ROI for your workload on the cloud. Now, while talking of the cloud imperative, right, the next question is in the area of security related to that. And my question is to you, Uttam, is that what is changing in cloud security services, products, and cloud native capabilities, to enable effective intrusion detection and incident response? We are all very good at the non-cloud avatar of this, right? So wanted to hear your take on the cloud avatar.
Yeah, a simple comparison there would be In the older days with enterprise security, it was more to protect assets around the IP address. So you're more focused with IP addresses. Now it's users, it's workloads. It's very different from how it used to be. With cloud security, there is also a trend that is changing. As a business that we've been for the last several years, especially on cloud, that we've been working with about 150 customers. So we've been part of about 150 journeys. So some of that, what I will say is from our experiences in these customer journeys, we've seen customers who started with cloud first in their mind. They were using simple instances, but today as their workloads become more and more complex, they're starting to do a lot of things which are now cloud native. It's become very different. Something that would consume 3 or 4 services with a workload today is changing to become 15 services. So where are we going? Even with cloud, I mean, I'm talking about maturity within how users have been starting to change their consumption. Somebody that used 3 is beginning to use 15. And what is the reason they've been beginning to do that? Simply because they want to take advantage of some of those services that are far more useful, far more performance driven, gets them earlier GTM. They want to run their DevSecOps pipelines there. They want to ensure that they take advantage of Kubernetes, go serverless, everything that one can possibly do, and which is where it is headed. With such a transition, obviously, it has become very, very difficult. It is difficult in the sense it's becoming very, very challenging. Attacks also have become sophisticated. If people started moving serverless, they started taking advantage of containers. Now the bad side of the world is coming and saying, let's exploit containers. So where is one to go? One has to ensure that, and you have on top of all this, you have ephemeral challenges. Everything on cloud is ephemeral, right? Most of it. And if you were intelligently consuming some of the services, you need to do that. So there are a bunch of things one has to do. Ensure that you have continuous scanning, continuous visibility, monitoring. On top of all that, actually bring observability. In enterprise security, maybe observability was not something that we all discussed a couple of years back, but today, with cloud security, observability has become a most critical component of how we did things. Now, how do you bring that? You talked about, and your question was related to natively, what can you do? And there are a bunch of things that's available from CSPs, the hyperscalers, starting to explore each of those services. I'm not going to name any hyperscaler or name services of those hyperscalers, but they have a bunch of things. You want to do, say, daemon set, you want to do sidecars, some of these capabilities, then you have image scans, you have ways to look at your workloads, you have ways to look at your data, and then connect that all to a platform which brings observability. So consume all of those capabilities that's available from hyperscalers, bring something on top of it, overarch it, and ensure that you have levels of observability which is very high. Plus continuous scanning, without which you really don't make sense on what you want to do on hyperscalers. That's my take.
Thanks, Uttam. I mean, continuous scanning is indeed the new order of the day. The same question to you, Sachin. I would like to hear from you as to what is changing in cloud security services products and cloud native capabilities, to enable more effective intrusion detection and, of course, incident response.
And thank you very much. So as a cloud provider, as a cloud data center provider, we actually come across multiple customers. We help customers with multiple journeys, with different journeys. We have customers from different domains: manufacturing, fintech, typical BFSIs, health sector. So first and foremost, we have to ensure that we have got appropriate certifications to ensure that our cloud platform adheres to their compliance needs. So example, it could be a simple PCI DSS certification for the fintechs or for the payment gateways, or it could be HIPAA compliance. So these are some of the simple steps that we start on, but then now it gets much more interesting and much more complex. Because today we are speaking about continuous monitoring, observing your infrastructure. That's where we deliver a systematic approach of SIM solutions, or it could go as high as FEAM or a PAM solution to bring out more security solutions for our fintech customers or customers from different domains to address their CISO or compliance needs. Today, we are observing a demand for HSMs, hardware security modules, and yes, as a cloud provider, we are delivering those to the customer. So ensuring that the solutions and our customers' needs or the compliance needs are in line is something that we work very closely. Our architect team works closely with the technical teams, understand their application flow chart, dependencies, and the kind of solution that they would look at. The biggest benefit, of course, of the cloud is that you get all of these solutions on a monthly OpEx model, and that makes the consumption much more easier. Else, just investing on hardware HSA model itself becomes too much complex or too much costly or capex intensive for some organizations. So of course, cloud makes this adoption much more easier, and this would actually help customers to use more and more such solutions. We do look forward addressing and helping out customers on the same lines.
Thanks, Uttam. Now, when we talk of cloud, and ideally all of us aspire that at the turn of a switch, we are completely on cloud, but sometimes statutory requirements dictate, right? Or else also one company wants to take a gradual journey to cloud adoption. So, and certain companies are not convinced that, one cloud is enough for them. They want to build a DR across clouds, things of that nature. So the reality of the world is that, we live in hybrid cloud environments and also in multi-cloud environments. Now, talking about security, my question to you, Manoj, is how can we improve security and visibility in hybrid and multi-cloud environments?
Okay, so let me talk about what has changed, what was there and what has changed. So from within our perimeter, the asset has moved out to the cloud. So it's no more inside the premise. So all the perimeter security measures do not good anymore. The second part is, when you move out, and the layered security that we had put together all comes to a halt. We have layers of security which we had put, and that doesn't work anymore. So because the data is no more within our premises, so what needs to be done? So multi-cloud or single cloud provider, I think the controls that need to be put need to be same. So the first thing, when we have the data in the cloud is to protect data in transit as well as in rest. Okay, when data is moving from one cloud provider to another cloud provider, to from your premises to the cloud, or any user or any service provider to the cloud, back and forth, the data need to be protected while in transit and in rest. As the data doesn't reside in your premises, the premises also need to be secured. So something like a tiered tier 3 or tier 4 certification of a data center where you host your cloud environment is something that one should look at. The third thing is you also lose visibility. So activity monitoring and capability to bring third party, what you also spoke about, like, a marketplace and things like that. So that also need to be there. Third party set up tools that should be integratable with the cloud services that we take. That's another thing. Having a good marketplace with ample number of tools which can readily integrate into the cloud infrastructure is also very important. Then one important thing is the users will invariably connect to the infrastructure. So user management and managing their security and making sure that they are their connections are secure, and multi-factor authentication, things like that need to be there. Anything that a cloud provider has need to have some kind of independent validation, like any certification like 27001 SSA 1618 or ISO 22301 or any other certification. Even independent certification definitely makes you more confident because it has been independently validated. Then future looking, something like the cloud, all of us are looking at zero trust environment. So the cloud services that we choose should have some kind of future looking capability, like it should support or integrate with the zero trust architecture if we decide to move to such an environment in future. So these, I think, are important ones, apart from attack detection and mitigation capability that should be inherent to cloud infrastructure. So these are some of the important points that are need to be considered from a security perspective.
Thanks, Manoj. Uttam, wanted to hear your views on how can we improve security and visibility for hybrid and multi-cloud environments?
Yeah, I wish you asked me this question before Manoj answered it, because Manoj had everything to say there. Yeah, well covered by Manoj. He actually got point by point. I would think, yeah, just resonating with everything that he said, a few things that I may want to kind of complement to what he said. Doing things like, if you want to go hybrid, if you want to be multi-cloud, it's very important that what you were running in the data centers start becoming completely modern. You'll have to focus on modernization. You can't be running legacy, because if that is the bet you've taken, you want to be hybrid, you better get your place modernized. Bring SASE, bring CASB, some of these capabilities, besides everything that Manoj also said, get everything there, complement with some of these capabilities, bring them there together, and ensure that you have, like I've mentioned in my first point, ensure that you have high levels of observability across everything that you're running, across instances that run on different hyperscalers, what runs inside your perimeter, your user context, make application completely aware of context. That becomes very, very important. Well, having modernized your own data center, bringing up to the standards of what a cloud service provider would deliver to you will make a lot of sense. If you had this huge gap that CSPs belong to this place with their standards, and you were somewhere down there, you're not getting anywhere, into more and more trouble. Ensure that you raise that bar. If you want to take advantage of what CSPs deliver and what is running in your perimeter, bring them together, bring them in a way they are all unleashed a certain platform, and there is a way to then go do better things. You will have to get a very nice IR team, remediation strategies, have observability, have the all tools. I am a firm believer, and that's what we do in Simune. We ensure that machines do all the work. You bring human intelligence when the machines have exhausted doing everything they could do, by way of right tooling, by way of right measures, right standards, right compliance capabilities, apply capabilities like NIST, SOC 2. If you are attached to an industry, bring that together, and then bring the standards up. My summaries: bring your standards of modernization really, really high, coming as close as what CSPs do, a hyperscaler would do. Yeah.
Thanks, Uttam. My next question is to you, Yask. Right, as cloud and cloud native landscape evolve and keep evolving, right? What are the security implications of the same, and what security approaches should organizations who want to embark on their journey take?
Right. So, starting with the security implications, I was reading in one of these reports, which I think Gartner has published, which says that 99% of the cloud faults would be customers' fault. That is one part. Two, one of these reports also mentioned that essentially one has to understand that everything on the cloud is a code. Misconfiguration of the code is the most important security flaw that has been seen, or the one that is leading to not many things. Now, coming to the question that you asked, a couple of things that I think are relevant and important, especially when we talk about the cloud security and the implications. If you look at the nature of a typical cloud environment, you're talking about multiple workloads, and the very essence of cloud is that you develop and it can be used by multiple processes, multiple functions. So therefore, there are two things that come out of it. One is the consistency part, the other is the complexity. Obviously, the complexity has increased because there are so many things which are used at so many places. The other is the consistency. Now if as a security professional, I have to look at certain controls to be deployed or certain measures to be taken, I need to ensure that the consistency is maintained. And you talked about this multi-cloud environment, hybrid environment. Now it's a big ecosystem in which all of these things are tightly integrated. Though they are tightly integrated, but just imagine if there is a flaw in one of these smaller subsystems, that can really cause a havoc in the complete ecosystem. So therefore, the consistency is very, very important. That's one aspect. The complexity, because of so many workloads being there, and a typical cloud environment, the traditional security measures. For example, I think Uttam pointed out about the serverless and the various abstractions of the physical hardware that are happening. Now, a traditional security would essentially look at, let's say, a layer 3 or a layer 4 or probably a WAF which is going to look at application. However, it works in an environment which is essentially API triggered. In a serverless environment, these kind of devices would not work. So that is also one, I think, challenge that is being faced. Two, there are certain parts of the cloud which are not visible. You talked about visibility. I mean, this is like the most basic requirement that there should be in fact, not just visibility, a high fidelity visibility is required to protect. Unfortunately, cloud, forget high fidelity, it is even moderate fidelity visibility is not something that is easily manageable. So therefore, visibility is one aspect. Two, again, Uttam touched upon the point that a lot of things are being done by the tools. The human intervention is coming much later on. But imagine a requirement which requires a lot of human inputs. For example, ironing out the false positives or false negatives for that matter. This is where the human, but we are talking about an environment which is expanding like anything. Crowd expands like anything. Therefore, the scalability for a human to match is I would say, I mean, I would not say impossible, very, very difficult. So there are certain challenges when we look at the cloud and the security implications starting from the top. And cost is also one of the things. Although, we think that cloud is, as I said in the beginning also, that ROI is not to be measured in terms of the money, but yes, there is a feeling that it is inexpensive. At times it can become very pricey, especially when we are looking at the kind of implications that we have. So see, again, as I say, the 3C, the cost, complexity, these are the kind of things that one has to look at. I think this is, and obviously, the traditional, you need to have a dedicated command and control center to have the complete visibility from your on-prem and the cloud environment. All of these are joining together to form a very complex environment and a security problem for the CISOs of the world.
Thank you. Same question to you, Sachin, in terms of, with cloud native landscapes evolving, what are the security implications and what approaches would you recommend organizations to take?
Thanks, Rajgopal. Actually, I would like to add a point is currently none of the cloud migrations or landscape transitions are happening without an active participation of a CISO, which was missing, I would say, maybe 3 or 4 years back. But the one thing I've been observing for last four years at least is that CISO has been an active participant, and none of the cloud transition happened without his advisories or I would say guidelines shared by him. Going a step ahead, I say I feel a cloud provider and a customer should not restrict themselves just as a vendor and a customer relationship, but it should extend towards a technology partner. Because once you work together as a technology partner, you work more cohesively, and that's where both teams work towards a common goal, delivering a better solution with your understanding your compliances. One other point which I wanted to highlight with reference to Manoj, which Manoj had mentioned out was today hybrid cloud. Yes, the customers are adopting hybrid cloud, and we as an organization we have observed that shadow IT is one of the common problems with the hybrid cloud strategies, and thus our engineering teams and we ourselves have worked and developed a platform that can easily integrate with our own cloud platform and other cloud platform. That's one. Second, we have also gone ahead and done a single port access to AWS, Azure, Google, and Oracle cloud platform. So when you say about multi-cloud strategies, multi-cloud platforms, it should not just remain only on paper, but we have actually gone through the details and done a lot of engineering to drill down, provide a complete network layer access, which is through a single port, you can have a multi-cloud access to any AWS Azure on a lowest latency network. And that's something which we have done and we are really proud of it. Thanks, Rajgopal.
Thanks, Sachin. I think indeed that is the customer centricity of your organization that is coming out. Thank you very much for that. In fact, Uttam, you mentioned about leveraging machines, and yes, you also highlighted on the same, especially in the area of identifying false positives and most definitely false negatives. Yeah. Now, today we see, with cloud and with a lot of developments in AI, ML, etc., the same should also ideally apply to security services, right? So how can we leverage AI and analytics to ensure data privacy, compliance, and security in a cloud environment? This question is to you, Manoj.
Okay, so there are three things you have mentioned. One is privacy, data privacy. Second is compliance, and third is security. These are three distinct areas. I'll treat them as that. Privacy is more to do with controlling disclosure. Okay, and there are legal provisions. It's primarily driven by the law and personal individual rights. So the earlier, technologies that are developed and all the technologies that are developed around privacy are termed as privacy enhancing technologies, like from many other analytics that are being used. So those are, developed to enhance privacy of individuals. And one thing that I have come across being used is to determine conflicts through analytics while doing privacy impact assessments. So does it have any conflict with any of the policies, any other regulation and things like that? So that is being one of the use cases I have come across, which is being used. It is getting evolved. So there'll be much more use cases. I've not yet seen any AI ML related use cases, on privacy, but it may come soon. Second part is a compliance. Compliance is driven by what is, it is like 0 and 1. Okay, something that compared with the standard set. So analytics play a major role. I am not sure AI ML has any, significant role. It may have a role, but it may not have a significant role. One of the ways in which analytics is being used is, from a GRC perspective. You do slice and dice of, compliance requirements, and then you get yourself prepared for other compliance. Suppose you are compliant to, say, X standard, and your objective is to go to Y standard. And you can easily use analytics to determine what is the gap and what are the measures that you need to put through, so that you have the shortest path to migrate from one standard to other or comply to both of the standards. So this is one of the use cases that I have said. The largest one is the security area, where, starting from the security operations center, where people adopt something like an attack MITRE framework and things like that, where analytics is used heavily. Then there is user and entity behavior analysis, where both AI and ML are used. Then, analyzing mails to determine malwares or malicious mails. That is where analytics and AI ML both are used. Then areas like SOAR, security orchestration and response. That's another area, major area where, AI ML is being used. There are several other areas, but these are some of the key areas that come to mind when you talk about AML and its immediate use cases. So that's what. But this is something that is going to grow, and there'll be much more use cases which will come and apply to these areas in future.
Thanks, Manoj. Sachin, where do you feel that we can leverage AI and analytics while ensuring the data privacy, compliance, and security? And what are typical use cases you may have come across?
Surely. Thanks, Rajgopal. Apparently, AI ML has been actively used in many of the security tools today. Adoption of it is important because getting a real-time protection, a continuous updated real-time protection is important. So today you can't have a system wherein it can't update itself with the latest information or a security threat or vulnerability, and you can have a system. You can't simply have such kind of systems. So you need to have an AML based system that can keep on continuously updating. Today, the way the work culture is evolving, the sophisticated attacks are evolving. So we can't have a different layer of protection layers working in a separate manner. We need to have a AI-based tools that can correlate all these protective layers like SIEM, EDR, IDS, IPS, SOAR, as mentioned by Manoj, or even network security tool. They should be able to work together, correlate, bring out a meaningful statement, so that all of this can be done with a good AI ML based security tools. I guess these are available by the cloud providers like us, and I think so customers should use and discuss more in detail with us for better solutions.
Thanks. So coming to the last question that I have on the panel, right, and this will be addressed by Uttam and Yas. What are some of the security techniques or best practices for both software and hardware aspects, right, of protecting data in the cloud? So I redirect this question to you, Uttam, first.
Yeah, very pertinent one, Raj, there. So we talked about workloads, we talked about everything else, data remaining the most important piece. It's important businesses identify it, especially when they've started working with cloud service providers, knowing what their crown jewels are. Identifying those crown jewels is going to be extremely important. And that's an exercise in itself. You need to have qualified people, leaders coming in, contributing, making sure that they're part of one team. They become like a team which is actually saying, this is my crown jewel for these reasons, and bringing business priorities together. So once those crown jewels are identified there, and today businesses run data lakes, for example, we have one of these customers who runs huge volumes of ingestion coming from 80 different sources, including databases like DB2, as old as DB2 legacy that they were running. And 18 ingestion sources, they all come cataloged, indexed, encrypted. They're ready to go for transformation. They're sending it downstream for analytics, doing everything that they can do. But what is traveling through that ingestion points and those automation pipelines is a lot of customer data, their own customer data. I'm just bringing this case study from my customer point of view. We realize there's a lot of customer data traveling, and this customer or any customer doesn't want their customer information to be on dark web one morning. Yeah, nobody wants that to happen. And how are they going to protect? They ensured that the data lake was first protected, because every other point that it was ingesting from had its own levels of protection. But this was the new one. They realized they are sending data to a new source, new place where they are generating intelligence. They're generating analytics capabilities, doing insights there. A lot of downstream people are engaged in the data sciences to see their business advantages that they could get. It was very important that they knew what those crown jewels are. Upstream, which is where they're ingesting from, had micro-segmentation, had macro-segmentation. They knew what was traveling, transitioning lateral in their environments, what is north-south, what is east-west. They knew that, but they did not know what to do here when it traveled into the data lake. So it became very important for them to now classify those crown jewels and start running automated methods to always scan and identify information which is related to privacy, which is related to, so while your questions on data, I'm touching upon privacy and data privacy from a PII standpoint. It was very important for that. And businesses, there are industries that can lose as much as 4% of their revenue if things go wrong. Yeah. And it was very important for them to ensure those crown jewels are identified. They knew where this is whole thing traveling from. They're able to auto scan and find out if this is the kind of information that should be available in some place. It should auto detect and tell them that this is where it resides. These were the changes that occurred on that data piece. This is how many times it was revised. This is where it was directed to. That becomes very important. So we worked with this customer and many others right now to identify those crown jewels and running those scans continuously, runs continuously in their environments to identify what's happening with data which relates to privacy. Likewise, with anything else, by doing micro-segmentation, macro-segmentation, by doing crown jewels, you can deal with a lot of things as far as data is concerned. But again, here you need some level of capability which is attached to machines, human capability, the commitment from people who are actually owners of such data sources. That's my opinion, Raj.
Thanks, Uttam. Over to you, Yask. what are some of the security techniques and best practices for protecting data in the cloud?
Right. So, I'll start with one very basic thing. One, any organization which is planning to move or has already moved to the cloud, one basic requirement is to have a cloud strategy. It sounds very simple, though, that everybody is moving to certainly have a strategy. What is important to understand is that cloud is not a simple lift and shift happening from an on-prem to a cloud environment. There's not many things happening. A typical pell-mell approach towards the cloud should not be done. It should be absolutely clear as to what is to be done. There are certain aspects of security which are taken. So there are three entities when it comes to a typical cloud deployment. One is the CSP part. Then if there is an SI in between, and then the customer. All these flavors of the cloud, whether it is the SaaS or the PaaS, and all these would clearly define as to what responsibility the customer would have. However, there is one thing that one has to realize, that the customers have to realize that there are only certain things that one can do. For example, visibility is what everybody is talking about. In fact, crown jewels, knowing the assets. In a typical cloud environment, what is going to happen is that, and the reality is that we are in a multi-cloud environment. It is not one single CSP that you have. So you have distributed workloads across distributed clouds, distributed environments, and you need to understand where this asset is lying, where this crown jewel is lying. Is it only at the cloud level or also at the customer? Because you are now wanting your customers, your partners, your employees to connect to the cloud from anywhere, everywhere. That is the beauty of the cloud. Therefore, this data which is to be secured is lying at so many places. So again, coming back, so what is important is to first know where the data is. Then you start applying. It is not like a typical perimeter environment in which I know, I would put certain controls at the perimeter level. North-south traffic is something that I can easily monitor. Here, there is no concept of north-south. So the right strategies, the CASB, the SASEs of the world, approaches like ZTNA is something that one has to look at. Again, all of this go into the strategy. So that is one very important aspect. One is a very clearly and well-defined strategy for the cloud, especially the security. It is all about data. I mean, I would not really emphasize too much or would be concerned about the networks and all these parts. I am basically concerned about the data. Where is it residing? How do I protect it? Whether it is at rest, in motion, or whatever. The data getting exchanged between two clouds and all that. Then defining the roles. Who is to do what are the kind of expectations one has. So therefore, SLAs are going to play one very important role. In a typical on-prem environment, I have the full access to it, whereas in a cloud environment, there might be certain challenges. Compliances play a very important role. You, I think, mentioned compliances. One very and the kind of penalties that are now being imposed, whether it is 4% or whatever, the PDP is yet to come in this part of the globe. The point is that what is important is that suddenly there might be a scenario that the compliances might suddenly change. Therefore, that kind of flexibility needs to be there in the contracts, the agreement, the SLA. I think what needs to be done is that all of these small aspects have to be very clearly documented into on the piece of paper, on the contract, and everybody has to become a party to it. I think this is what one should start at, and gradually, build expertise. Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of expertise on the cloud security now. In terms of the people security professionals, we still tend to think that it is just an extension and we'll be able to do it. That is also something, I'm actually not covering all those parts, the competency building and all that, but that is also one of the aspects that one has to look at in terms of the overall design of the security.
Indeed. Thank you, Yask, Uttam, Manoj, and Sachin. So cloud security has its own set of challenges, but it's a reality that one has to live with. Leveraging a good strategy, ensuring continuous monitoring, and having the right partner and approach will ensure that every one of us, including our audience, have a safe cloud journey, right? Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Rajkumar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raj, and thank you all the panelists.
Over to you, Bhavna.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, the panelists.
What an excellent moderation that was. Thank you so much, Yash, Uttam, Manoj, Sachin, on this incredible panel discussion. We couldn't have asked for more from all of you. So thank you for your wonderful time. Thank you.